The angles of Blackwater Cove. The lighthouse keeper was the first to notice something different about the shadows. Not that anyone believed him. Old Morris had been drinking since noon most days. But Dr. Maya Chen heard his slurred warnings as she hauled her research equipment from her car on her first day in Blackwater Cove. They don't fall right, the shadows. Watch them long enough and you'll see. Maya smiled politely, nodded, and continued unpacking. She had heard plenty about small-town superstitions during her career as a marine biologist, and Blackwater Cove seemed to have more than its share. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the waters, how nothing lived in them anymore, how the fishing had collapsed overnight 3 generations ago. That's why she was here, to study one of the most pronounced dead zones on the eastern seaboard. Her rental cottage overlooked the harbour, a small Victorian structure with peeling blue paint and windows that rattled with each gust of wind. Maya set up her makeshift lab in what was once a sunroom, arranging microscopes, sample containers, and water testing equipment with methodical precision. Science had always been her refuge, especially now, 6 months after her divorce from David. The clean logic of data offered comfort that human relationships never could. That first night, exhausted from the drive and setup, Maya stood at her bedroom window. The moon cast silver light across the harbor, illuminating the jagged rocks and churning waves below. For just a moment, as she was about to turn away, the moonlight on the water seemed to arrange itself into a pattern, geometric angles that no natural formation should create. Maya blinked, and it vanished. Just fatigue, she told herself. Just the mind finding patterns where none exist. That's what humans do. She didn't notice how the shadow of her cottage stretched impossibly far across the cliffside, pointing like a dark finger toward the deepest part of the bay. The town library occupied what had once been a ship captain's mansion, its rooms lined with dark wood shelving and maritime artifacts. Maya found Samuel Thorne hunched over an ancient ledger, his white beard nearly touching the yellowed pages. When the floorboard creaked beneath her feet, he looked up, startled, then smiled. Dr. Chen, I presume. We don't get many new faces in Blackwater Cove. I'm researching the dead zone, Maya explained. I'd like to look at any historical records you have, weather patterns, industrial activity, anything that might explain when and why marine life disappeared from the bay. Samuel's eyes, magnified by thick glasses, seemed to evaluate her. Of course, though I should warn you, the answers you seek may not be the answers you find. Maya suppressed an eye roll, another cryptic local. The records revealed little she didn't already know. In 1871, the waters had suddenly emptied of life. No pollution event, no overfishing explanation, no red tide. Simply empty waters overnight. What the scientific accounts didn't mention, but Samuel was quick to point out, was that it had coincided with a minor earthquake and the disappearance of 17 townspeople. They were never found, Samuel said, his voice dropping. Just like in 1947, and again in 2023. Maya frowned. Last year? There were disappearances last year. Samuel nodded. 7 people. The official report says they were lost at sea in a storm, but there was no storm, Dr. Chen. As Maya walked back to her cottage that evening, she noticed how the shadows seemed to stretch longer than they should in the late afternoon sun. A shimmer rippled across her vision, like heat waves on asphalt, though the air was cool. She paused, blinking rapidly, and it passed. The water samples she collected showed nothing unusual, just dead water, devoid of microorganisms. But when she examined the rock formations along the shore, Maya noticed something odd. The erosion patterns formed perfect angles, as though the stone had been cut rather than worn away. More puzzling still, these formations seemed recent, appearing in rocks that should have been stable for centuries. That night, Maya dreamed of stars arranged in a constellation she'd never seen before, a geometric pattern that seemed to pulse with its own awareness. She woke gasping, her bedroom filled with shadows that appeared to writhe across the walls before settling into normal shapes as her eyes adjusted. "Need more sleep," she muttered to herself, "and less coffee." The next day, Maya met Eliza Carter, who ran the local diner. As Maya ate breakfast, Eliza mentioned offhandedly that she hadn't been sleeping well. "The dreams," she said, sketching a pattern on her notepad. "Always the same stars arranged like this. Never seen a constellation like it." Maya felt a chill as she recognized the exact pattern from her own dream. When she asked around town, others described the same dream. Same stars, same pattern. Always accompanied by a sensation of falling upward into the sky. At low tide, Maya discovered a cave entrance beneath the cliffs. Local legend claimed it descended to the deep places, whatever that meant. Armed with a flashlight and sample collection gear, she ventured inside. The rock walls were covered with fossilized remains of unknown organisms, spiraling shells and skeletal structures that resembled no species Maya had ever studied. Deeper in the cave, her flashlight beam caught something embedded in the wall, a geometric shape, perfectly regular, that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As Maya approached, her vision began to distort. The edges of the shape seemed to bend reality around them, and for a moment she thought she could see through it into somewhere else. A vast darkness filled with distant lights that moved with clear purpose. She backed away, suddenly dizzy, a low humming filling her ears. Outside, she found that 3 hours had passed, though it had felt like minutes. That night, as she reviewed her notes, Maya noticed a pattern emerging. The disappearances, 1871, 1947, 2023. 76 years apart, the geological abnormalities, the shared dreams. Something was happening in Blackwater Cove on a cycle, and if the town's history was any indication, something worse was coming. Samuel confirmed her suspicions the next day. "The records I didn't show you," he said, unlocking a cabinet in the library's back room. "The ones the town council doesn't want public." He pulled out a leather-bound journal. "My great-grandfather's accounts of 1871. The journal described a thinning between worlds and a presence from beyond the stars that had taken root beneath the bay. Most disturbing were the detailed sketches, the same geometric patterns Maya had seen in the rocks, in the moonlight on the water, in the cave. "They called it the Abyssal Presence," Samuel said, "an entity that exists between dimensions. The disappearances are just feeding." Maya should have laughed it off, should have found a rational explanation, but she had seen too much already. That afternoon, strange bioluminescent organisms washed ashore, translucent, geometrically perfect creatures that resembled no known species. As Maya collected samples, her vision distorted again, the shoreline seeming to bend at impossible angles. For a moment, she could see the town from above, as though looking down from an immense height, and at the same time from below, as if peering up from the ocean floor. The samples moved under her microscope in synchronized patterns, forming and reforming the constellation from the dreams. When she looked away and then back, they had dissolved entirely. Reports came from around town, clocks running backward, shadows detaching from their owners, residents experiencing lost time. The humming grew louder by the harbor. Dogs refused to go near the water. Birds fell from the sky, their internal navigation systems seemingly scrambled. The night sky itself began to change. Stars appeared where none should be, arranging themselves into that same dreaded pattern. Maya found Samuel at the lighthouse, staring up at it. "It's opening," he whispered. "The rift is widening, like it did before the others were taken." "There has to be a scientific explanation," Maya insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. "Science?" Samuel laughed bitterly. "What science explains what's happening to time here?" He pointed to his watch. The hands were spinning randomly, sometimes clockwise, sometimes counter. The Abyssal Presence exists outside our reality. Our laws of physics are meaningless to it. That night, Maya's cottage trembled as a minor earthquake shook the town. Through her window, she watched as the harbor waters receded dramatically, exposing the seabed. In the center of the bay, revealed by the withdrawing tide, stood a massive black obelisk, covered in the same geometric patterns she'd been finding everywhere. And at its base, a pulsing tear in reality itself, a rift of absolute darkness ringed by dim, otherworldly light. Dawn never came the next day. The sky remained dark, though the stars had rearranged themselves completely, forming cosmic geometries that hurt to look at directly. The townsfolk huddled in the church, many catatonic, others speaking in tongues or drawing the same patterns over and over. Samuel found Maya at the harbor's edge, staring at the exposed obelisk and the widening rift at its base. "It happens every 76 years, he explained, his voice steady despite the madness around them. "The orbits align, the barrier thins, and it feeds. But this time is different. The rift is wider than ever before. If it fully opens..." He trailed off. What happens if it fully opens?" Maya demanded. "Then it doesn't just feed, it emerges, and our world becomes part of its world." Maya's scientific mind rebelled against everything happening around her, but she could no longer deny the evidence of her senses. Reality itself was unraveling in Blackwater Cove. The shadows now moved independently, reaching toward the rift like hungry fingers. The humming had become a physical force that vibrated through bone and tissue. Maya had found references in Samuel's great-grandfather's journal to a ritual, a way to close the rift, at least temporarily. It required someone to approach the obelisk at the moment of greatest alignment and recite specific geometric equations while holding a focusing object. "The lighthouse prism," Samuel said, producing an octagonal crystal from his coat. "It was made for this purpose." "Why me?" Maya asked, taking the crystal. "Why not you?" Samuel's eyes were sad. "Because I've seen too much already. My mind couldn't withstand being that close to the rift. You still have enough skepticism, enough rational thought, to resist its pull long enough to complete the ritual." Maya felt herself nodding. Despite everything, part of her still believed there must be a scientific explanation, that what she was experiencing was some kind of mass hallucination or natural phenomenon not yet understood. That scientific anchor might be the only thing that could save them all. The trek to the obelisk was nightmarish. The exposed seabed wasn't solid ground, but a semi-fluid surface that seemed to breathe. With each step, Maya's perception shifted. One moment she was walking forward. The next, she seemed to be moving sideways through a reality with additional spatial dimensions. The shadows reached for her, brushing cold tendrils across her skin. The obelisk loomed larger than should be possible, its surface crawling with symbols that rearranged themselves as she watched. The rift at its base pulsed like a heart, widening with each beat. Through it, Maya could see glimpses of a vast, impossible space, a cosmos utterly alien to our own, filled with structures that couldn't exist in three-dimensional space. And there was something moving toward the rift from the other side. Something massive, with angles that changed as it moved, its form incomprehensible to human perception. Maya clutched the prism, reciting the equations Samuel had taught her. The geometry was non-Euclidean, describing spaces and relationships that shouldn't be possible. With each line, the crystal in her hands grew warmer, beginning to glow with an inner light that seemed to stabilize the chaos around her. The shadows converged, trying to wrench the prism from her grasp. The rift pulsed faster, wider. Through it, Maya could see the entity more clearly now, a vast intelligence composed of geometries that hurt her mind to perceive. As she spoke the final equation, Maya felt something brush against her consciousness, the awareness of the Abyssal Presence itself, turning its attention fully upon her. In that moment, it showed her everything, the true scale of the cosmos, the innumerable dimensions folded within and around our reality, the insignificance of human existence against the backdrop of infinite time and space. Maya screamed as the knowledge flooded her mind, too vast for her consciousness to contain. The prism in her hands erupted with light, shooting a beam directly into the rift. The tear began to close, the edges pulling together against the force trying to widen it. The entity on the other side reached toward her with appendages that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Maya felt them brush against not just her body, but her mind, her very soul, leaving geometric scars across her psyche. With a sound like reality itself, tearing and then mending, the rift sealed closed. The obelisk cracked, huge sections falling away. The tide rushed back in with impossible speed, forcing Maya to swim desperately toward shore as the waters reclaimed the bay. They found Maya 3 days later, wandering the beach, drawing perfect geometric patterns in the sand with obsessive precision. Her eyes, once sharp with scientific curiosity, now seemed to look through people rather than at them, focused on something no one else could see. The town returned to normal, or what passed for normal in Blackwater Cove. The shadows fell as they should. The stars resumed their proper places. The humming by the harbor faded to nothing. Those who had disappeared never returned. Samuel visited Maya in the hospital, watching as she covered the walls of her room with intricate, mathematically perfect drawings of the constellation, the obelisk, the entity she had glimpsed through the rift. "You saved us," he told her. "You closed the rift." Maya turned to him, a moment of clarity in her fractured mind. "Closed," she whispered, "not destroyed. It's still there, Samuel. Still waiting. And now I can see everything." She resumed her drawing, tears streaming down her face as her hand moved with mechanical precision. "The angles," she murmured. "The angles are all wrong here. Our geometry is a lie. Our science is a child's drawing compared to what's really out there." Samuel placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know," he said gently. 76 years, Maya whispered. "It will come back in 76 years, but part of it is already here." She tapped her temple. "In me. It touched me, Samuel, and I understand now. I understand everything." That night, a nurse reported seeing Maya's shadow moving independently of her body, stretching toward the window that faced the harbor, reaching for something only it could perceive. In the waters of Blackwater Cove, a single bioluminescent organism appeared, its structure a perfect geometric match to the patterns Maya now drew compulsively. It pulsed with a dim light, a tiny beacon signaling across the dimensions to something that waited patiently beyond the thin veil of reality. And in the sky above, for just a moment, the stars shifted back into that impossible constellation, visible only to Maya Chen as she stared upward, her mind forever lost in the angles between worlds. If you enjoyed this tale of cosmic horror from Blackwater Cove, don't forget to like and subscribe. Though, be warned, those who hit the notification bell sometimes report seeing strange geometric patterns in their peripheral vision for days afterward. But that's probably just a coincidence, right?